So today I wanted to talk about a game that honestly wasn't on my radar at first, Ion 2. And I followed MMOs for a couple of years. I actually played the original Ion, way back when. And like a lot of people, I thought the Ion name was kind of, fading away. They had a couple of reinventions of the original Ion game, but after watching the recent reveal, I started to see something different. A game that feels like NCSoft's attempt to finally deliver on a vision they couldn't pull off the first time to the extent I think that they wanted to. Let's break down what makes Aeon 2 worth keeping an eye on. Aeon 2 takes place 200 years after the original. The Tower of Aeon has collapsed, the Devas have fallen from power, and the world feels bigger and more open than the original. The developers described it as their chance to build the Ion they always wanted to create, but couldn't because of the hardware limitations. At least that's what they said. Not sure how true that is, but this game looks to be definitely a step above what the original was. What really stood out to me though was the world is said to be 36 times larger than the original. That's pretty ambitious. Let's take that, with a grain of salt until we can actually get into some sort of a beta. And they also mentioned that you could fly anywhere. No more fly zones, no terrain restrictions, just seamless freedom across the land, sea, and sky. It's kind of the scale and movement I always wanted. A game that was similar to this kind of like way back in the day was Flife or Fly FF, where it allowed you to just kind of fly through different zones and it just gave you that sense of freedom. I think that's what Aeon 2 will try to deliver with this reimagination or this sequel to the original. For classes, we can see that there's going to be 8 classes at launch, and they feel designed with more modern action combat MMO players in mind. You've got the Gladiator, which is a sub-tank, your Templar, which is your main tank, Assassins focused on stealth and burst damage, Rangers, Spirit Masters, Sorcerers, Clerics, and Chanters, which is kind of like this hybrid support class with both buffs and healing. Combat itself leans into manual controls, but it does look like it's going to be like a hybrid of tab target, something that we see in games like Throne and Liberty. There does seem to be some rear hit detection. The gameplay seemed to be more action oriented, but that alone makes me feel that this is a meaningful step forward for Aeon, especially here in 2025. One of the most interesting choices is how NCSoft is handling factions. Elios and Asmodeans are back, but they'll be on separate servers, facing off through scheduled matchmaking battles and even dimension invasions, where you can cross into enemy territory. On the PvE side, Aeon 2 is offering 4-player and 8-player dungeons, plus dynamic field events. And if you played the original, you might be glad to hear that fan favorites like the Temple of Fire dungeon are returning. Matchmaking will work globally, and there's even an easy mode with guides for players who are still gearing up or learning mechanics, something I think could go a long way towards keeping groups of players running smoothly, keeping players engaged, and honestly retain players, so there isn't such a big gap between everyone that's kind of reached the higher levels versus players that are just joining the game. In terms of mounts will be earned by collecting fragments dropped by monsters out in the world, a nice touch that keeps exploration rewarding. And while the reveal didn't go deep into progression systems, the focus on the manual combat and skill-based gameplay makes me hopeful that this won't lean into too many pay-to-win mechanics. My take after watching the gameplay reveal trailer and looking at all of the other information I could find online was I didn't expect to feel too much about Aeon 2, but seeing NCSoft go back into this world and really try to deliver using modern tech on the vision of true freedom and large-scale aerial combat, it's hard to not be at least a tiny bit hopeful, especially after the disaster that seems to be Chrono Odyssey recently. If you've been waiting for an MMO that tries to bring something classic into the more modern era, Aeon 2 could be one to watch, but I'll keep my eye on it and keep you guys updated with more information as they release it. If you're curious about Aion 2 or if you have memories from the original game, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more updates as the game gets closer to launch, feel free to hit the like and subscribe if you have time. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.